Okay, welcome everyone to Matsuyama JALT's March meeting with Jose Domingo Cruz, who is going to be speaking today about teaching fluency using the verbal classrooms method. And many of you know Jose from Online Teaching Japan, or maybe you know his book, Teaching with Zoom too. Anyway, let's give a big hand welcome to Jose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. That was very subversive of you for holding up that book in just the way that will push my button. Speaking of pushing buttons, I am a member of Online Teaching Japan, and that's where I met Linda. And that's where I think a few of you may or may not have seen me present on this information before. Linda and I have been planning to do this for what now? I guess like about a year and a half, I think.
It was canceled 3 times. This
Three
is the
times.
4th time
Yeah.
to
And I
4th
was
time's
actually
a charm.
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually supposed to be there. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but you never know. I might show up another time. There might be another opportunity. But for today, thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much to the members of the Matsuyama JALT officers. The Matsuyama Matsuyama City Board of Education also gave their blessing to this with a Koen Meigi, an endorsement. So little pressure that I don't normally feel, but still, let's talk a little bit about fluency. I don't know if a lot of you consider or how you consider fluency, but when I first started talking about fluency, in my presentations about, wow, actually now it's going to be about 8 or 9 years ago, I would start these presentations by getting people into small groups and asking them in your small group, take a couple of minutes and just discuss, what is your definition of fluency? Or what do you think fluency entails? And there were a few people who would get together and say, well, fluency is being able to speak eloquently. Fluency is your ability to do well in speaking and reading and writing and listening and all of the 4 skills. And some people would try to bring in a true technical definition. Well, fluency is the 3 points of complexity, accuracy, and fluency, which I thought was kind of one of the most interesting ones. It wouldn't be something that came up once. People would talk about it in a couple of the times I would ask, and they would say, well, it's a 3-parter. It's complexity, accuracy, and fluency, which is tautological. You cannot define a word using the word as part of the definition. Fluency does not define fluency. And part of what I want to do first here is I want to actually talk about that definition. If we can't define fluency, how do we actually know how to target it in our own classrooms? How do we promote it to our students as something that they should be mindful of, and how they should work towards achieving it for themselves? So when I'm talking about fluency, when I first started researching fluency, one of the first things that I did was try to look up general sort of references to what are language goals in well-known references. And one of the most important one is the Sefer. If you look at the Sefer in the Wikipedia, of course, as most of us know, there are actually 6 levels to the Sefer, A1 and A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, C2 being the highest level, and A1 or A0 even being true beginners. We would all be ranked at C2, but some really, really good Japanese speakers can achieve C2 with some hard work. The interesting thing is that for most of us, when we teach our A1, A2 students, we expect them to be able to speak. But even in the Sefer itself, there is no mention of fluency until you get to level B2. And I don't know about you, but most of the students I teach most of the students I teach do not achieve B2 or are not at B2 when I get them. But that is the only place the Sefer begins to talk about fluency. So there it is, B2. B2 is all of these wonderful, very useful definitions in the Sefer about what you can do. But when it comes to defining fluency at B2, there's a degree of fluency, awfully vague. C1, okay, so you're getting pretty good at it, so you can express your ideas fluently. Now, I don't know where the what would be a very broad line between a degree of fluency and express ideas fluently. If you're generous in saying to the Sefer, well, I think I'll try to understand you, you can probably understand it, but there's certainly no clear definition in terms of fluency between B2 and C1, and it's not any better once you get to C2, because there you go from express fluently to very fluently. What exactly does all of that mean? There's a lot of other definitions in terms of what it is that you can actually perform, but in terms of fluency, not a lot there that helps a teacher help his or her students understand that you're at C2 level of fluency because of these and these targets. You can do those things, but are you very fluent or are you expressing fluently? I don't know, because I don't really know what the Sefer thinks of that. So when it came to the definition, I decided, after I looked through a lot of research articles, and they themselves too are very confused about defining fluency. There are ways to measure fluency. Theoretical linguistics will have all kinds of terminologies about pause words, micro disfluencies, macro disfluencies, overall speaking speed. But in terms of what it is that defines minimal fluency, something important that we can say to our students, listen, if you can achieve this level, then you know that you're beginning to get to B2. And then from there, you can start measuring yourself against these other numbers to know that you've done better since last month, last semester, or last week. So this is what I came up with. And I do stress this is a definition of fluency, thus my definition of fluency. It is a hypothesis. It does not have any science behind it. And I prefer to use it because I can give it to my students and they can take it home and keep it in their minds. It is not something that is agreed upon by fluency experts at this point, at least until I start bringing it into the literature with some data. But my definition of fluency is a minimal of 110 to 120 words per minute. If you speak at about 120 words per minute, you sound kind of like this. Most of our students can't speak at that rate. Most of our students would have a difficult time actually just putting 8 words together or 11 words together. Mr. Cruz, is my homework due this Thursday? When was the last time your students actually said, Mr. Cruz, is my homework due this Thursday? Which is about 130 words per minute. They can't. One reason is that they don't achieve that speed. Another reason is the secondary definition about mean length runs. Mean length run measures, the idea that of your smoothness. So not just of your overall speed, because you could talk like this a lot and it's not really what I would call fluent, but you can get to 120 words per minute with those staccato bursts followed by long, awkward pauses because you're still not being able to control your smoothness. So a mean length run is the idea that the length of speech that you can achieve without any disfluencies, without any pause or filler words. Mostly by experts, this is measured in syllables because they want accuracy. So they measure it down to its smallest component. But again, because most of our students have a hard time measuring syllables accurately, I don't talk about syllables, I talk about words. Now, roughly, okay, if you can actually go to about 25 or 30 syllables, that works out approximately to 8 or 9 words. If you can speak at 8 or 9 words in a row without actually having to put in an or an or a you know or a like or I mean, then you're achieving what I would consider a mean length run of approximately 8 words, 120 words, 110 words per minute. You've got minimal fluency. And it's not that hard to actually measure. There are apps out there for your phone that you can use like a thumb counter. So you basically tap the screen and every time you tap, it'll run up a counter. And you would just ask the student, okay, we'll turn on your voice recorder in your phone, speak on a topic like what you had for dinner last night in English, and play it back to yourself and or on your computer, and then tap out the number of words that you hear, and find the part where you're speaking the smoothest and tap out the number of words that you spoke before you started saying something like, or another disfluency is speaking Japanese in the middle. And you'll see where you are at this point. Now, here are the numerical targets. Were you actually able to speak 110 words per minute? You'll be surprised. Most of your best students are actually only about 90 words per minute. You just perceive them to be fluent. But really, I would say that to get to about 110, 120 words per minute. Now, the reason why I chose that number is because I was doing some research using the recorded conversations in my website of native speakers. And the guys who spoke the lowest were at about 135 words per minute. And I thought 135 words per minute, listening to you guys, that's really slow. But some people are very slow speakers. Me, I can speak at about 180 words per minute when I'm excited. When I really push myself, I can speak at about this rate, which is about 225 words per minute, which I don't like to do normally. I piss people off. But my normal speaking speed is about 170 words per minute. So I thought, if you can speak just slightly below that, almost annoyingly slow pace, then you're probably getting to where you want to be. So the takeaway to all of this is that fluency is about speed, and it's about your smoothness. And speed, as I'm going to speak about later, is not just in your speaking, but fluency requires that you have speed in your responses and in your idea creation. You could be a quick speaker, but if it takes you 5 minutes to answer yes to the question, do you like ice cream? You're going to have to work on that part of your fluency. Your idea creation is something also that has to be something that is as quick as your actual speaking. Because if it takes you time to come up with a new idea, you could have all kinds of skills, but you're going to be hesitating within a conversation because you can't keep up with all of the conversation changes. Your smoothness has to be controlled between your words and your sentences. You have to know, that standard thing that we were told when you're doing recitation, that a comma is a single beat pause and a period is a 2-beat pause. All of that has to be controlled by you. Control your Japanese, control your filler words. So smoothness is all about control. Now, what is this about verbal classrooms? Verbal classrooms takes that technical definition, and verbal classrooms uses it to create a whole set of exercises that I have implemented quite successfully through my career to make sure that students can maximize their classroom time and turn it almost all into speaking, almost all of it in terms of what I call face up time, not face down time. They're looking down at a piece of paper, filling in words. If they're still thinking about what they're going to do in this a group work, a dialogue that they're creating, I don't know if that's a lot of the time that they spend in class, if that's the best way to use their time. In the same way that, if you were a baseball player and as soon as you get out onto the pitch, you run around, do laps, then you start doing dashes between first base and home plate, then you run to the batting cage. You don't spend a lot of time listening to the coach's strategy. You don't spend a lot of time watching video when you're out on the pitch. When you're out on the pitch, you do work physically. And when you're in a classroom with your friends, with the teacher, the best thing you can do there is to speak. All of those other things like, vocabulary acquisition through study, yeah, all that's important. But in the classroom, you should actually be maximizing your speaking time. So that is what I use as a basic idea in terms of what I create verbal classrooms around. And the goal is to get them through that scaffolding into progressively complex scaffolding towards independent conversations. And that classroom is the best place for it because when you're there with your friends, when you're there with each other, you're going to see how I create a dynamic that removes a lot, not all of them, but a lot of the hindrances, psychological barriers that students have towards speaking. They're shy. They don't want people to hear their mistakes. They want to be able to practice without feeling pressure. They don't necessarily want to talk to the teacher. They'd rather talk to their friends. So let me show you the first example as to what I do. But before I show you to you, I'm going to show you a video. I just want to show you what it is that I'm showing to the students. This is These 7 pronouns and their matching conjugations to the be verb are going to appear on a blackboard behind me. And because it's not easy in the video to see all of it, I just wanted to show it to you before we go on. So that's what I'm going to show you. And now I'm going to show you this video. This video came from a recorded demonstration class that I did when I was working with a professor at Kyushu Institute of Technology. It's a national university here in Kitakyushu. And I was working with Professor Robert Long, who was researching fluency. And he realized that while I was the guy he hired for his website, I was also this guy that actually had something that he wanted, which is not, he was researching fluency to try to define points of it. But I actually had a method to actually teach it. So he gave me a little bit of his grant money to do this demonstration class. We recorded it with a bunch of students, 3/4 of whom had never seen me do any of this, were not told initially what this was about. So they were just as raw as any of my students as I would have them in their first semester of class with me. Anyway, enough talk about it. We're going to be talking about a bit more about it. But let me just double check that, yeah, you guys are going to hear that fine. Okay, let's listen to this a bit. My teacher wrote this up for me. Oh gosh, no, what is that? That's 46 years ago? Holy cow. Okay, when I first went to Canada. And one day she said, Jose, stand up, say all of this in a big, loud, fast voice. And I would stand up and I would say, I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, they are. Very good. 2 times, faster, louder. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, they are. I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, they are. Now, I bet if I asked one of you right now to do that, you couldn't. And you are university students who've studied English for 6 years. Just goes to show you, all the studying you do doesn't get you ready for speaking. So we're going to speak today. First thing we're going to do, I want you to turn around in your chairs 90 degrees. Turn around 90 degrees. Turn around and face your partner on that side. Just, no, turn around in your chair. Yeah, just turn around in your chair. You don't have to turn the chair. Just turn around in your chair. Good, okay, there you go. Good. Okay, and this is what we're going to do. I'm going to show you how to do this with you. Okay. Take it from the first line. Somebody, when I say ready, go, first line. Okay. You will, I'll go with I am. You'll begin with you are, and I'll continue with he is, she is, and we'll continue from there. When we get to the bottom, we go back to the top. Ready? I'll start. I am.
You are.
He is.
She is.
It is. Look at me. Look at
We
me.
are.
They are.
I am.
You are.
He is.
She is.
It is.
We are.
They
I
are.
am.
You
He
are.
is.
She
It is.
We are.
Over here, over here, over here. Very difficult, yeah?
Yes.
But it looks so easy, yeah? Because looking at something in English, studying it on paper is nowhere near as difficult as looking at somebody in the eyes. So it's okay. If you want to look at this, go ahead. Take a look. You can check the order. You can check whatever it is you want. But when you speak to a person, learn to go from paper to a person's eyes. Look all you want, but when your mouth moves, you go back to the person. Okay, when I say ready, go, somebody begins. Look at your partners. Ready, go. One of the first things that people sort of note when they first see this initially is they go, Jose, do they really just start when you say go? They do. That wasn't rehearsed. I wanted to get this videotaped exactly the way it runs in a class. In every time I've done this, and the most nervous I ever was the very first time I did it, when I was told, no, don't worry, Jose, they're going to go as soon as you tell them. They will. They do every time. For the past 25 years, they have always started when I say ready, go. And you might be shocked, but they will, because we're used to students who are always hesitating and stuff. But part of that is, I don't know if you saw this, I lined them up. And when they go, they all immediately speak. They all realize within a fraction of a second that, hey, nobody can hear my voice. And that din that is created hides all of their anxiety, hides all of what they consider to be bad pronunciation. And they can concentrate just on getting these sounds out of their faces. Another sort of indirect advantage of it is that because there is a din, they have to speak loudly, even if the partner is just across from them. So immediately they start getting practice and actually speaking from their gut, as opposed to speaking from their noses, which is what a lot of them do because they're speaking in such small voices. Now, I want you to consider that that would be probably the first, like all of us, we have to spend the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of every class going over the syllabus, over our expectations for the class, etc. And by the time you get to the first exercise, it'll probably be at least 30 or 40 minutes into the first class. So that's probably the first class. Now, I want to show you what normally would happen if I was given a class and allowed to teach from my own syllabus without any limitations in terms of following any particular expectations of teaching TOEIC or a particular textbook. If I'm allowed to teach exactly the way I want, I get something like this. Okay. This is, again, the same arrangement up and down the rows. Okay. They're basically turned in their seats so that then there's pair work. They are told to switch, and you're going to see that switch in a video later, by moving to the next seat to their left. And they move like a snake along the room, which guarantees that they're going to get a new partner every time that they switch. And by the week 13, the first class that I had was a fairly high level class. They're probably around a TOEIC 520 average. This is a TOEIC 470 class, more like what I'm used to at most of my classes. But they, after 13 weeks, ended up like this. They are energized, they're joking with each other, they're making gestures, they're independent, they're all speaking. They are speaking spontaneously without looking at me, without looking at others. They are communicating what they want to say in an environment in a way that is conducive to their own level of communication. When you can isolate fluency from complexity and accuracy, and you target that only, and you have a little bit of faith that these kids, they understand the need for complexity and accuracy. They've been taught that ever since they were in junior high school, and they had to learn all of these words and all of these grammar points. They have it in the back of their heads, but they've never been given the time to actually start to utter these words. This system gives them that chance. And by the time, it's 13 weeks later, they're used to making those utterances. Some do better than others, but generally all of them participate and do well. The system itself, of course, has its advantages and disadvantages. And for the students, probably the most important disadvantage is that some students will feel, hey, wait a minute, Mr. Cruz, I'm going to be going into university entrance exams soon, and I need to learn about the common test. I need to learn about that university's entrance exam. What are we doing all this speaking about? And then you sort of have to try to find a way to convince them, well, you have your Japanese teacher in your other classes. They're teaching you enough about grammar translation that you'll probably be okay. But even on the common test, at least in the next couple of years, you're going to have a speaking component. And in that speaking component, you have to be able to speak well. But whatever that disadvantage is, it is very much balanced out by the fact that this actually addresses their speaking skills. And whether or not this particular year, there are still some students who don't think speaking is as important to their educational career as they should, it will be necessary in the coming years. Now, for teachers, there are advantages and disadvantages as well. The first disadvantage is this really, really takes a lot of energy, because there isn't a lot of downtime. There isn't a lot of time where you can say, okay, everybody, now just fill in the blanks for the next 5 minutes. Okay, everybody read that article, and then we're going to get back together and do group discussions. Okay, go into group discussions. You are front and center all the time, leading, monitoring. On the other hand, my job satisfaction, I don't think it would be as high if I wasn't always watching kids actually enjoying conversation. There's a lot less work for me because there's less marking. And another one that's really big is that because I'm very aware and concerned about the whole idea of native speakerism and how that shuts out non-native English speaking teachers. This is a very, very viable system for anyone who is at least nearly fluent. They don't even have to have great pronunciation, but if they're nearly fluent, they are just as good as I am or a native speaker in terms of leading this kind of class. The goals of the system, to reiterate, are to maximize student speed and quantity, speaking quantity, getting them to create their ideas faster and to make them independently, and getting these kids to realize that fluency is its own target. It is not inseparable from everything else. It's just like, I love baseball analogies, and baseball is a game within a game within a game. And batting, just batting practice is its own thing, as opposed to actually playing the entire game. And this is kind of like, well, let's focus on your batting, or let's focus on your fielding. It is a separate skill that needs to be practiced specifically for that skill. Okay, so enough talk from me. I want you guys to actually start participating in this a little bit. And what I want to do is demonstrate with either Chris or Linda, whoever is feeling brave at this point, that particular exercise I did with that first kid. And then we're going to go into breakout rooms, and you'll actually try this out for yourself. But before we do, does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want to? It's a small enough crowd. You can just open up your microphones and throw out any questions before we go into demonstrations. Does anyone have anything they want to ask? Or if you want to put it in chat, I might not always be watching the chat, but certainly Linda will probably watch it for me. Barbara
has a question.
I was just curious, what were in the second group, what were they talking about?
Okay, so I'll talk about that a little bit later, but they were already in the practice stage for their upcoming semester evaluations. And the semester evaluations are based on getting them into groups that they make themselves and speaking for 5 minutes, English only, very strict rule that, again, I'll explain later. But they were speaking together on a certain set of topics that will be the topics for that assessment. And these topics, I give them very, very everyday topics: music, food, TV, Japan, America, sports, family, romance, university, English. These are topics that they would have to use if they made a brand new American or British friend who is a foreign exchange student on campus. A lot of teachers believe that we should be talking about, no, we've got to talk about global warming. We've got to talk about the SDGs. Don't think that's going to be your first conversation topic when you make a new friend. And these topics are as important in terms of maintaining that kind of friendship, so you can have more conversation practice, as are the SDGs, as are global warming. So those are the topics that they were practicing there. From that class, then we make groups. They practice within their groups. They strategize within their groups, and then we have assessment. Anybody else? We're good? Okay, so Linda, you want to take the first turn? I've seen that reaction. I get that reaction a lot from the people who have to do these demonstrations with me. So I'm going to explain this as I would with one of my students. Okay, Linda, are you okay with this? You see that up there? Those are the 7 pronouns. They go very obviously from I, you, he, she, it. Now take a look at I. That is a special one with the irregular verb be. It's am. But you and we and they, very simply, are, he, she, it, the third person. You're going to have trouble with this for a very long time, but try to remember from here that that takes that unique third person singular form. You okay with all of that?
I hope so.
Okay, I'm going to say the first line. You're going to throw the second line right back at me as quickly as you can. When we get to the bottom, we go to the top until I say stop. Ready? I am.
You are.
He is.
She is.
It is.
We are.
They are.
I am.
You are.
He is.
She is.
It is.
Good. Okay. That was a little thing that I learned I could do when I first encountered a room that had, you know, those sliding blackboards, the ones that slide up and down and one slides behind the other. And I realized, you know what I can do? I can write this first set on the blackboard that goes behind the other one. And at one point, I just sort of like, while I'm looking at everyone, I just slowly grab the blackboard down and everyone just looking at me while they're trying to talk to each other, and they realize there's nothing to stare at. And it works really well. They get the message at that point. But now, if no one has any particular questions to that, what I would like to do is put you all in breakout rooms, and I believe we have 12 here. So that means that
The lobby should be one of the breakout rooms.
do you want to do it that way, Linda?
If anybody else comes, yes.
Well, I'll be in the lobby.
Oh, okay.
I'll be in the lobby if anybody else comes. And what I'll do is I'll make one room with 3 people, if that's okay. And I'm going to recreate that because one person came in a little bit early or a little bit late. Okay, so one room has 3 people. The first person who lands in the room, you know who you are. Get ready. You're going to be the first one to throw out the first line. Second one, get ready. You're going to be the one who obviously sees somebody in there when you arrive. Just get started. Don't worry about self-introductions or thinking, oh, you want me to go first? Or you want to go first? No, you go ahead. No, don't waste any time because this isn't going to be very long. It's only going to be 2 minutes. Okay. And yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Anne.
Yes, Jose, actually, there are 2 of us here. So rather than create a 3.
Okay, yeah. Hang on. Now I've got to reset that. It's okay. It's okay. I'll reset it now.
Potentially, there are 2 of us. If I just wondered if that would make it easier rather than the 3.
No, it's not going to make it easier. So okay. If you want to bring them in, actually, Anne, you're with. Let me see here. Where is Anne? And if you want to bring in your friend there, that's fine. You can have 3, but otherwise you're in a room with a second person, so you guys can figure it out for yourself.
I see. I beg your pardon. I thought you said that there would be a room with 3.
There is a room with 3. You're not in that room.
I see.
Okay. So, okay, everybody, no questions. So enjoy yourselves. Enjoy yourselves. Here we go. For those of you who came into the room, remember that you're being recorded, so you want to turn off your cameras. You're quite welcome to at this point. I realize, and I'm very sorry about this, that normally when I send my students into the room for the first time, I make sure in my mind that I send this slide in with them, and I forgot to send that into the breakout room, so I'm very sorry. But you know, you're English teachers. This shouldn't be something that you need to look at a blackboard about. But does anyone have any questions about it? It's a little different when you actually do it for yourself, right? Anne?
Not so much a question as a comment. So because we didn't have the script, Rudolph and I had 8 phrases.
Because so, you wanted to do the you again?
Well, we did the you are, yeah, automatically. And then I realized that, of course, it should be an odd number so that when you go through it again, exactly. It's not this, you're not repeating.
Yeah, exactly.
But it took us 2 runs at that to realize that.
To realize you just kept saying the same lines over.
Well, we took it in turns. So I went first, and then he went first.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I have been asked before, hey, wait a minute, there's the plural second person, and I go, yeah, and it's right up there with the singular second person. When you're trying to do this, having a paradigm or frame of mind where you're still attached to the rules of grammar that you were given is something that I think we all need to shake off. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later on about how we have to shake off our paradigms, because this is a very different way of thinking. But yeah, that happens sometimes. And but the fault was mine. I didn't send you guys in there with the blackboard. But thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so let's continue. Obviously, this is only the be verb. I mean, there's so many more things that you could talk about. So for example, what if you took that be verb and said, okay, now let's put in an adjective with that. And this is where you can start telling the kids, what I want from you this semester is to not make you spend your time learning yet again the relative pronoun, or yet again the past present continuous, the past perfect, or the past continuous perfect, or whatever. I'm not a grammarian, I don't remember these terms very well, but just get you to understand that every good, not every, but almost every good English sentence has a subject, has a verb, has an object. If you can remember that that sequence has to be checked, unless you're doing, let's say, the command form or anything else like that, if you can get that checkbox in your head, subject, yes, verb, yes, object, yes, then you're going to be going miles further than you ever were before. So here's one that we can practice. I am sleepy. You are sleepy. He is sleepy. Another one that you can give them once you get up here is you guys all know how to do negation. You've been practicing negation. Probably some of you have been going to Eikaiwa since you were in grade 5 elementary school. But how many times have you actually practiced it this way or have practiced it recently? So let's practice negation. Let's practice past tense. And there's those nasty prepositions. Let's start getting those prepositions out. Now, you probably were asked to memorize prepositions, but really native speakers don't memorize prepositions and their associations with certain verbs or with certain types of objects. We just talk the hell out of it. And eventually gets drilled into our heads because there's that sort of neurological association in our brains that we're going to say Osaka in terms of be verb, the preposition is in. Practice that. Then make it a little longer and start approaching the other problem of fluency, which is your smoothness. It is relatively easy to say, I was sleepy. You are sleepy. He is sleepy. But when you get to, I was in Osaka, you were in Osaka, start encouraging them to say that in one breath. I was in Osaka. Oh, you're still stuttering? Well, maybe step back in your speed. I was in Osaka. Hey, can you hear those liaisons in my voice? I was in Osaka. When you're actually getting these kids to start saying one particular phrase, I was in Osaka, you were in Osaka, we were in Osaka, they were in Osaka, they're going to start hearing that liaison between the R and the I. And let them experiment with it. Encourage them to make that link, which they can't do if they're only asked to say one sentence one time. To hit it perfectly on that one time. Okay, Taro, your turn. Please say the sentence on the blackboard. Taro shaking like a leaf. And of course, you're not going to give him a hard time if he has a few pronunciation problems, but that reinforces the image in his mind that he's never going to get that. He's not ever going to get that if you give them only one try, but here they're going to get several tries, sometimes with 2 or 3 different partners. How about this? I was in Osaka last week for a kendo match. Imagine that in Japanese. Can you say that smoothly in Japanese? If you can't, then you are starting to empathize with your students. If you can say it once smoothly in Japanese, can you say it for all of those pronouns? And being able to empathize with your students, knowing the feeling that they have when they go into a group discussion or even just a little pair work like this is something that's really important, because then that tells you, wow, this is hard for me to say. Maybe I don't want to make it too much longer because I think a lot of these kids in my classroom are at the same level of English as I am in Japanese. Having a sense of empathy is really important, something that I think that's missing for a lot of instruction types and instructors. Instructors tend to forget that this stuff is hard, and to be reminded of it by asking yourself, can you do this in Japanese, is a really good thing. We're a little short on time, so I would have done a breakout room here to get you to try this, but we're going to skip that so then we can go on to the next important level. And that is the question type. So without saying too much, but basically we all know how difficult it is for these kids to actually smoothly use English question grammar. And English question grammar being so far removed from Japanese question grammar or other languages question grammar. For us, it was never a really big problem. We were studying French or Spanish. It's so similar to English question grammar. For Japanese, real pain. And this is how I teach it. So first, let's just watch this video. Oh, and it'll also show you how I do the switch, how I make them switch seats in the middle of things. Well, let's watch this. I have a very crazy way of doing this practice. Person starts at I go. When you make the question, you make it with the subject next in order. So if your answer was I go, your question will use you. I go, do you go? Your answer to this question uses the same subject, which then takes the next subject. This question uses this answer, which then takes the next subject, and so on and so on. It looks hard, but actually once you start doing it, it starts getting pretty easy. So let's take this slowly. Do you have any questions, dear? No. Okay, so I'll go slowly. I go, do you go? I go, do you go?
You go, does he go?
Good. He goes, does she go?
She goes, do we go?
Next one after she.
Does it go?
It goes, do we go?
We go, do they go?
They go, do I go?
You go.
They go, do I go?
I go, do you go?
You go, does he go?
He goes, does she go?
Very good. Do your best. Ready? Go!
You do. You go. Does he go? She goes. Does it go?
He goes.
They go.
They go.
Where does he go?
Does he go? Does she go?
We go. You go.
We go. They go. They go.
I go. You go.
You go. Does he go?
He goes.
Set!
Wait, don't go. Yeah.
You go this way. You go this way. You okay? Okay. If you need to look, you can look. But when you speak to my eyes. Ready? I go, do you go?
You go, does he go?
He goes, does she go?
She goes, does it go?
It goes, do we go?
We go, do they go?
Good. Do your best. Ready? Go!
I go, do you go? You go, does he go?
That is what I call the answer question pattern, thus the acronym, the AQP. And the answer question pattern, I call it that because if you look at it, it begins from an answer, a statement, and the next thing that is uttered is a question, P for pattern. I am, are you, is what I would like to practice first, because what I was showing them, because I only had 2 hours to do a whole bunch of demonstration things for the demonstration video, I would normally start with something simpler, like the irregular verb be, because very simple rule. Subject, verb, verb, subject creates the AQP. A regular verb requires subject, verb. Then the question is auxiliary verb, subject, infinitive. And I don't need the trouble of trying to make them think that when they haven't even practiced this. So the pattern goes, the first person begins with I am, and then they have to utter a following question. The question that they make is created with the subject that is next in order to the subject that they used in the statement. So if you start with I am, the subject next to I is you, so you create are you. The person who is answering that question, are you, answers with the subject that was used in the question. Now, normally in a conversation, are you is answered, of course, with the subject I, because you're talking to me. But because this is a practice, you have to follow this pattern so that then they can get it into their heads that this is the standard pattern. The subject that was used in the question is the subject that is used in the answer. From there, you is the answer's subject, so he is the next subject in the pattern. That is what follows in the question. It would go like this. I am, are you? You are. Is he? He is she? She is it? You can follow me as we go. Okay, you can mouth this through. She is it? We are they? I am, are you? You are, is he is she is it is, are we are they are, am I? That will be hard to do the very first time you try it, and you're going to see that this is something that's actually quite difficult to do, because I'm now going to put you in breakout rooms yet again. Oh, no, wait, I have to compensate for the person who just entered. Now we're at 13, so let's see.
Yes, we
Linda,
have a new person.
Yeah, who was that just entered, Linda? Adam is cool with this. He's got
Adam
no problem.
Jenkins, yeah.
No problem. Okay, so 6. Good. Okay, so does anyone have any questions before we go in? Okay. Barbara, I can get you the PDFs for this if you want. You don't have to Yep, no problem. I thought you were maybe taking a photograph there. Okay, no questions. Then I'm going to open up the rooms. 2 minutes again. First person that lands is the first person that's in. And I will shoot this into the breakout rooms for you guys to be able to see. Okay, here we
Thank
go.
you.
There you go. Just want to remind everyone that cameras are back on and being recorded. Does anyone have any comments or any questions at this point? Raise your hands or just open up your microphone. Quite welcome, small group, so quite welcome to ask any of those questions. Miguel, my friend.
Yeah, okay. Let me just move this. It is quite challenging, I guess, because this is our first time, but like in your experience, do you ever get students who just clock out and say, oh, and they don't want to do it, or like what's the worst case scenario that happens in these situations?
I have never had non-participation, and I know that's hard to believe. I've never had non-participation.
Wow.
I've had obstinate students who, when they first came into the classroom, immediately laid their head down and tried to sleep through the first 30 minutes. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to ignore you. Maybe you're just tired from baseball practice, but I throw them into the pair work and they just perk up. The assumption that we have that these kids will not work with us means that they don't want to do English goes out the window when they're asked to work with their friends, and goes out the window even further when they realize that no one can actually hear them. So the lack of cooperation you might have seen with other stuff, I have never seen with VC. Never.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. There are, I believe Adam Jenkins is here. I don't know if he's actually ready to speak about it, but maybe later when he opens up his microphone, he can give you a bit of his firsthand impression, because he brought a lot of this into his own classroom over the past year. And he can tell you probably his own experience with it. But Anne, what's your question?
I was wondering whether it was better or not to do it with feeling or not, or like how much, like with expression, or surprise, I am, or intonation, or
You're free to bring that into the practices as much as you can, but I'm very much a believer in the idea that if you just want to ask them to speak quickly, please only ask them to speak quickly. If you're going to get them to speak quickly and now you want to give them a secondary challenge of maybe doing those liaisons, please focus on that, but don't focus on two new variables at once. Just like in algebra, figuring out a two-variable equation is extremely difficult, much more difficult than figuring out a single variable equation. Asking them to do too many things at once and trying to throw too much in there all at once at the very beginning is something that could be a hindrance and something that I generally avoid. Now, you might be better at it than I am. Your mileage might vary, but it's not something that I do.
No.
Go ahead, Anne.
I mean, it was something that just happened in the breakout room, although I don't think that was, as you've said, one of the aims, because it's just adding an extra layer of complexity.
Yes. And when I used to do this before, when I had a bit more time to do the presentation, I would actually take, if I saw that I had a room full of native speakers, the Japanese speakers, the Japanese people in this room right now probably didn't fall into that mode where like, well, this is a little too simple. Let me throw in some variation of voice tone, or maybe trying to pretend that I'm surprised or that I'm angry. They're focusing specifically on the speed. But if I turn this into Japanese, which I've done in different presentations, it flusters the heck out of the non-Japanese people, and they're focusing simply on the speed. And again, when you try to empathize with your students, imagine doing any of this in Japanese. Would you be, if your teacher suddenly asked you, no, you're not giving it enough feeling, English is spoken to feeling, and you're in your mind, you're going, yeah, but teach, I'm just trying to get the words out of my face. So your mileage might vary. If you've got a bunch of kids that are like, super high level, maybe, why not, right? But another part of the paradigm switch is that you have to learn how to be very much more a skills coach. And a good skills coach, a good baseball manager, watches his team on the pitch that day. And if he realizes, wow, these guys have had 3 games in the last 2 weeks, they're particularly tired. Maybe I'll ease up on them this particular practice, or these guys haven't done anything in the past 2 months. Let's really give it to them and give them a lot of practice. You got to watch that. You've got to temper that. Maybe your assumption at the beginning of the class wasn't correct, and you've got to roll off a bit on this or that. You've got to watch and change what it is that you want to do depending on how you see the class reacting, which is one of the reasons why it is best not to do it with like a set of targets that are, you know, written in stone, but also requires that you go through that paradigm shift that I'm going to talk about later. Okay, let's move on a bit. So you go from that irregular verb to do. These kids have to know how to do, because if they can't do, then they can't do things like regular verbs. And regular verbs, normally I do a lot of demonstrations in breakout rooms, but I'm going to vary that up. Chris, would you like to take this demonstration?
Sure.
It'll just be a demonstration, everyone. We're not going to go into breakout rooms, but just to show that it gets a lot harder as you move on. But eventually what you'll find is that your native speaker-ness kicks in. And what you're doing is only having to focus on the pattern. Okay, Chris, do you have any questions?
No. I
Okay,
think I
here
can
we
do
go.
this, maybe.
Okay. I have. Do you have?
You have. Does he have?
He has. Does she have?
She has. Do we have?
Next one after she.
Oh, it. Does it have?
It has. Do we have?
We have. Do they have?
They have. Do I have?
I have. Do you have?
You have. Does he have?
He has. Does she have?
Good. And there your native speakerness did kick in. But if I was to do this with a kid, they'd be fighting for both the pattern and a little bit for the grammar. But by the end of it, they're fighting more for the pattern than the grammar. The grammar becomes subsumed by the effort to remember the pattern, which then means that the grammar is no longer the problem, and that the utterance, the single utterance itself, is no longer the problem. It's the pattern, and the pattern disappears in a normal conversation. But what remains is their memory that they were actually able to say this quickly with speed. Oh, and by the way, if anyone has any questions at this point, just open up your microphone and go ahead and interrupt me. From here, you can start, and by the way, this is probably week 2, week 3. So they've had a good 120, 110 minutes of this already. And once they get to the point where you feel that they're getting good at it, one thing that you can do to make it easier on yourself, okay, is to just say, okay, you know, all of those pronouns on both sides of the AQP, let's just turn them into a symbol. It goes from I to they. There's the question mark. Don't forget the question. Now, here are the model sentences for the first utterance. Okay. I have Netflix. Do you have Netflix? That's where you could start. And then stretch it out. I have Netflix on my phone. Do you have Netflix on your phone? That is what I call a double variable conjugation. Carmela, would you like to try this? No, you're adamantly not going to turn on that mic icon, are you? Linda, sorry, you're the guest host. This is you. Oh, sorry, munching away.
I was eating.
Sorry. You okay?
I need to stop eating.
All righty. Yeah, let's burn some calories. Are you good with this?
Yeah, just let me.
Sure, no problem. So just remember, and this is what I do with the students, okay? And you'll find this. I'm going to give you a link to a YouTube video playlist that I have, and that is basically me all the way through, no cuts just so that then it'll be 20 minutes at a time, but it's basically me all the way through the 2 hours. And I review all of these possessive pronouns. I go, okay, everybody, let's review. I, my, you, your, he, his, she, her. And you go through all that. They know all this stuff. It is all in their heads. What you're doing is providing a very efficient, very safe way to go through these utterances and give them what they've always wanted, a chance to practice what they've always needed. Okay, Linda, we good?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, all right, here we go. I'll start. I have Netflix on my phone. Do you have Netflix on your phone?
So do I answer or do I?
No, you answer with you.
So you have Netflix on your phone. Does he have Netflix on his phone?
He has Netflix on his phone. Does she have Netflix on her phone?
She has Netflix on her phone. Does it have Netflix on its phone?
It has Netflix on its phone. Do we have Netflix on our phones?
We have Netflix on our phone. Do they have Netflix?
You did it wrong. You did it wrong. Our phones. You fell into the trap that I lay for these kids when
Maybe we have only one phone.
this is true.
In
This is
our
true.
house,
Maybe
we have only one phone.
maybe your phone ran out of charge and you're having to watch Netflix on the train on one phone. This is entirely true, but wrong. Anyway, I'm still going to give you a boo on that one.
Okay.
But there's for example, do I have it on here? I don't. But oh yeah, here's an example that I have from a class I did. I work as a cram school teacher. Do you work as a cram school teacher? Does he work as a cram school teacher? Do we work as cram school teachers? And I wait for them to see if they can actually pick up on that. And then I tell them, you missed something. And I sit there and I wait until they figure it out. I try to give them hints. I don't feed them the answer directly. But they know all that stuff, but they just don't do it instinctively. And if you remind them of it, don't tell them wrong. Tell them, don't forget. Now you know it, but just you forgot. That's all. And it's a more gentle way to show them that, well, don't worry about it. You know, you're going to go back into another practice. Just remember where your weak point was. Now you know where your weak point was, and you can turn that into a strong point. If you know where your weak points are, that can become a strong point. Here's another double variable conjugation, which is a variation on the point of the effort is not in conjugating the verb. The effort is in actually remembering these possessive pronoun and the object pronoun. My grandfather plays tennis with me. Does your grandfather play tennis with you? Your grandfather plays tennis with you. Does his grandfather play tennis with him? These double variable conjugations can get pretty tough. Oh, it is here. Oh, there it is. Okay. I work as a cram school teacher on the weekends. So those brackets, those parentheses, I leave up there as the hint. And I don't explain it entirely. And I wait for them to actually go. Some kids will like realize it in the middle of the thing, in the middle of the AQP, and they'll be able to belt it out naturally. And that must feel like such an achievement for them. And the ones that don't, I just remind them, oh, you forgot something. Okay. Now, at this point, you're looking at that. I work as a cram school teacher on the weekends. That's a 10-word sentence. That 8-word sentence that I previously demonstrated before was plenty difficult enough. But at this point, once you get to something even like, if I go back, my grandfather plays tennis with me, that's already 6 words. And then does your grandfather, the question is 7 words. Start encouraging them to go through an exercise that you may or may not introduce easily, but this one idea, one breath. Start learning to say things with a secondary focus on your breathing, which is actually a pretty easy sell for Japanese kids that do things like ikebana, judo, kendo, kyudo. Breathing is everything in those sports. Learning to breathe with your partner, learning to breathe on the bow pull, learning to breathe out on the release. All of those things require breath control. Explaining to them that you need breath control when you're speaking, and the target being that first, suck in sufficient air, release as you speak, and budget your air to get to the end of the period. And you demonstrate and you demonstrate and you demonstrate, and trust me, not all of your kids will get it. We do not have to have absolute success with all of these kids within 16 weeks. You want to teach them something and trust in them that they will remember, and they will carry it with them forward into their next few classes. But see how I demonstrated with this kid. I'm going to fess up from the beginning. He was not one of my success stories, but this is how it became one of my strong points, because this is how I would handle it if I demonstrated with a kid who obviously was trying hard, but couldn't do it, and the points that I would make if a kid wasn't able to follow through. A little bit difficult. I live in Kitakyushu. My sister. Pardon the camera work, by the way. Do you? let's review. I, my, you, your, he, his, she, it, its. Now, especially that S. If that S is not there, it changes the meaning. We, our, they, their. I live in Kitakyushu with my sister. Do you live in Kitakyushu with your sister?
You live in Kitakyushu with your sister. Does he live in Kitakyushu with his sister?
Good. Very good. But again, come back to this practice. Perfect grammar. Pronunciation was perfect, but that was not fluent. So, if we're going to go back to this. He lives in Kitakyushu with his sister. If you feel confident, do everything in one breath. But try to do at least one sentence with no stopping, with a nice pace, all in one breath. Do your best. Ready? Go.
I live in Kitakyushu with my sister. Do you live in Kitakyushu with your sister?
Do you live in Kitakyushu with your sister? You are going up and down and up and down. So smooth, smooth.
I live in Kitakyushu with my sister.
Go. So weird, right? There's only one kid wearing a mask. I know this is really hard. And a lot of you are going to want to stop to think about your English because that's the way you've always spoken English. That, unfortunately, leads you to what we call broken English. You're going to stop all the time to speak. No, one breath. Ready?
Okay.
Okay, number one, take a deep breath. Here we go. I live in Kitakyushu with my sister. Do you live in Kitakyushu with your sister?
You live in Kitakyushu with your sister.
No. Now, that was just because you were going too fast. You weren't ready. You wanted to force it. Don't force it. Take your time. If it takes a long time here, no problem. It will get faster. It will get better. But you must do it first correctly. Take your time. Do your best. Ready? Go.
I live in Kitakyushu with my sister. Do you live in Kitakyushu with your sister?
Does anyone have any questions at this point? No. Okay. Check this out. This is probably the single longest sentence that I've actually ever thrown at a group of students. I like watching Blu-rays at home more than going to the cinema. Believe it or not, by the end of about 30 minutes of practice, even though we were still only about halfway through the semester, a bunch of them could do it. You give these kids enough time to practice something specific and you focus on the specific thing that you want, which is smoothness through the sentence, they'll do it. They want to do it. This is what they've always dreamed of. They were just never given the opportunity, right? They were given dialogues where they were saying individual sentences once, and they always find that fun, and they get to talk to their students. But they know the value of batting practice. They know the value of repetitive practice at the Kudo ground. And you just need to give it to them. Let's move on to one of the other parts that are important to VC, which is the idea of getting them from there, from those scaffolded single sentence practices, towards getting them to understand how to do independent conversations. So this is a diagram of a sentence structure that I would have by the time that we were going to be, written there, week 6 or 7. So by that point, I give myself about 3 or 4 weeks. So about, that was at 90 minutes times 4, 180, 360 minutes to be able to get from here to the point where They talk like this. My mother, good cook. My mother is a good cook. My mother cooks for supermarket, restaurant. Breakfast for me, my sister, then go to work, make food for restaurant. My mother is a good cook. That's what I consider an improvement from what it is that they couldn't do before. Now, if you think that that's horrible, I can't have my students speaking that way, that's embarrassingly bad English, VC might not be for you, but it's certainly, I think, a step above what these kids were doing before they came into my class. So this is the eventual goal, and this is how it goes. I believe that, yeah. Now, what I would do with them is I would first get them to do I like as a verb. So maybe throw in something like, I like music. I like music. Do you like music? You like music. Does he like music? So that standard thing that we just did. Once they feel good with that, maybe I'll spend a bit of the class going, I like K-pop better than I like country music, or something like that, just to turn it as a variation into a bit of an OIOB exercise. Then I say, okay, kids, let's just practice on speed, okay? Let's just get you to say, I like music. Do you like music? Okay, only that, literally only that. I like music. Do you like music? So both people will only be saying that. I like music. Do you like music? I like music. Do you like music? Now, this is where Anne's point can be brought to fore, because there's only two actual utterances. I like music. Do you like music? Encourage them. Say it in an angry voice. Say it in an inquisitive voice. Say it with a surprised voice. Say it like your dog just got ran over. Say it like you just fell in love. Then you can start practicing all of the different intonations that you could use. Then tell them, say it twice. I like music. I like music. Do you like music? And then both people do that. Then they can practice saying surprise on the first sentence, anger on the second sentence, disappointment on the third sentence, or tell them anything that you want, but it has to go up and down, or stress on different words. I like music. I like music. I like music. All of these things, but just what I tell them is just avoid sounding like a robot. Now, at this point, they're able to say this 2 times, 3 times, and they're thinking, yeah, but Mr. Cruz, why are we repeating this anyway? What's the point of that? Well, I tell them, I want you to remember, if you can remember at least 1 or 2 of these 2 things coming out of my class, is that if you need to communicate, do not doubt your grammar or do not doubt your pronunciation as much as you do now. 80% of the communication problems that I encounter with my students is simply because I cannot hear them. They're speaking in too small a voice. And if you go to Chicago and you're at the train station with bags in hand and you're trying to catch a train, and it's an incredibly noisy place, and you have to ask the station master, excuse me, platform 8, where is it? And you say it in a very small voice, and the station master gives you a quizzical look. Learn to just say it exactly the same way, but reflexively. Bring up your voice, say it 2 or 3 times louder. Then maybe if he doesn't understand you, maybe look for different words. But reflexively, repeat everything you say. There is nothing like it for emphasizing communication. We get them up to 4 times. Then we emphasize speed. Can you say it as fast as me? I like music. I like music. I like music. I like music. Do you like music? And get them to do that. And there are all kinds of variations on that. But at a certain point where I was writing the number 4 or 3, where there's a question mark X, the variable, I would now just put in the question mark. I say, now I want you to say this as many times as you want. And I would produce this diagram. I'm sorry, I realized that I actually gave you an older version of this presentation. This was all laid out actually for you as I just described it, where 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. So I hope you can imagine that in your heads. Eventually we get here. So everybody, you see those question marks up there? I want you to choose the number of times that you repeat. Why? Because I want you to repeat as much as you need to until you can think of a new word. That new word, it can be anything that you want. I'm sorry. It can be anything you want. I've got to go back here. It can be anything that you want. It can be sports. It can be pizza. It can be Hiroshima. Whatever you want to say that will fit in there. I like red, that will fill in there grammatically correctly. Now, It's a new word. You didn't even know what that word was. And more than likely, your partner will only, if they hear it only once, will not be able to hear it well. So be kind to them. Say it at least twice, maybe 3 times. You'll see it in their face. They're going to go. Then once that communication is established, then you can ask the question. The question you only have to ask once. But once you ask the question, when you hear the question come from your partner, that word that was in the question, that becomes the new repeat word. Use the repeat word as much as you want until you find a brand new word. Through this pairing, you cannot repeat that word. You always have to find new words. But remember, repeat as much as you want, but don't stop. Repeat as much as you can when you put in the new words until your partner understands. Then, without skipping a beat, without losing your speed, ask the question. Adam, are you there, buddy? Maybe he's not. Maybe he's just listening.
Yes, I am.
Oh my gosh. Thank you very much. I think Carmela is smiling. He was going to ask me, wasn't he? No, he wasn't. So Adam, would you demonstrate with this with me, please?
Okay. Do I start or do you start?
I'll start. Ready?
Okay.
I like music. 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 I like computers. I like computers. I like computers. Do you like computers?
I like computers. Yes, I like computers. 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 I like barbecues. Do you like barbecues?
I like barbecues. 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 I like Tokyo. I like Tokyo. I like Tokyo. I like Tokyo. Do you like Tokyo?
I don't like Tokyo. I don't like Tokyo. 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 I like cycling. Do you like cycling?
Now, Adam went in there and went ahead and put in a variation, which is perfectly all right. But let me explain. And thanks, buddy. He negated the verb, which I would actually tell them no. No matter what your partner says, you have to like it. There is no negation up there. We're going to get to negation later. We'll practice negation, and I'll tell you that everything your partner says you don't like. And you can actually have a bit of fun with this. I don't know if you guys watch a lot of Japanese TV, but there are a couple of like universally reviled comedic talents on Japanese TV, and one of them is Degawa Tetsuro, and another one is Egashira Nijigo Juppun. And even now, when I say, I like Egashira Nijigo Juppun, I like Egashira Nijigo Juppun, do you like Egashira Nijigo Juppun? And especially if I'm saying this to one of the ladies in my classroom, they sort of kind of roll their eyes and goes, I like Egashira Nijigo Juppun, I like Egashira Nijigo Juppun. And I'm having fun going, oh yeah, me too. Yeah, all right, okay. And if you take something like, I don't know, you find out one of your students just loves baseball and you're practicing negation, and you say, I don't like music. I don't like music. I like baseball. I like baseball. Do you like baseball? And the rule is that they have to answer in a negative. And you know that this guy likes baseball. You're going to have fun because he's going to have to say, I don't like baseball. That is where we end up with that original diagram that I showed. And what I would have done to actually show negation is, do you see those yellow asterisks that I put there? That becomes the symbol for negation. And it's an asterisk in the sense that it is your choice. Now, we've sufficiently practiced I don't like and I like. And here we're practicing and or but we also practice enforced negation in enforced locations, so that then we can practice and, but, because and means that both forms are the same, but requires that there is a difference between the two sides of but. But here they have to know, number one, the word that they want to say, the word that was being repeated, which one they're going to negate, which one they're going to actually throw out as a positive because they do like it or they don't like it, and on the fly choose the correct conjunction. Which, if you think about it, all of those variables, saying them so that then it comes out, well, I don't like coffee, but I like tea, which is practically a no-brainer for us, is so hard for them. The reason isn't that they don't know difficult grammar. It's that they've never learned how to take simple grammar and put it into a long sentence and done these on-the-fly variable conjugations. Think about all of those, right? I don't like coffee, but I like tea. I like coffee, but I don't like tea. I don't like coffee. Sorry, I don't like coffee. I like coffee and I don't like tea. All of that is something we don't think about, but they have to think about it. They have to practice at least sounding like they're speaking fluently while they're doing all of this on the fly. And VC gives them that opportunity. I'm going to have to start speeding up. So this is where I believe, who was it? I think it was Barbara was asking, what are the topics they're talking about? What are they talking about? So we're starting to get to the point where they're being able to do independent conversations. Instead of just saying anything that you want, anything that fits grammatically, I want you to think specifically about the theme, my family. Before that, you can do the theme, my possessions, or simply my room. Anything that's in your room, your sofa, your blanket, anything that's in your pockets is technically in your room, anything of your possession. My PS4, my bicycle, all of that. There's a new variable in the question form. Do you have a kotatsu? Do you like your PS5? All of those things are things that they have to be able to calculate on the fly. Once we get to that, then you get to the point where you're talking about your family and you say, I like my sister, but I don't like my brother. I like my brother, but I don't like my father. My father is silent. My father is silent. My father is strict. My father is strict. My father has a fishing rod. My father has a fishing rod. My father goes fishing. All of these simple sentences that you give them as models, they begin to see that they can use them to describe members of their family with the simplest of grammar. And you tell them that good conversation at your level is not trying to do a one-off with a very difficult grammatical form. It's compiling and piling upon simple sentences, more information, using one variable in that sentence to present more information, not trying to do it all in one sentence, which is passively what they've learned from us, from our textbooks and from our teaching. To that point, you can start throwing out just a topic like high school, tell them, speak quickly, repeat the sentence that you need, think of more information, use simple sentences, ready, go. And literally, that is all I have to write on the blackboard. They go, oh, high school? Okay, got it, let's go. And they start having a great time. They love talking about high school with each other. They love talking about sports, especially if it's a bunch of baseball players mixed in with a bunch of basketball players, or I don't know, a bunch of gymnasts bunched in with a bunch of volleyball players. This is week 11. They're about to go into their practice classes, and they're about to go into their assessments. And I'll talk a bit about assessments later on. What I want to do, though, is give you one more exercise that I think anyone can use. You're probably already thinking, hey, this would make a good warm-up. Here's another type of warm-up that you can use. I'm going to ask Adam, can you give me a thumbs up or some kind of indication, Adam, if you're good to go for the next presentation or the next, demonstration as well? But I'm going to demonstrate. This is something I called word throw, okay? And basically, I write this on the blackboard. Okay, everybody, let's do something different. I want you to think of an English word, any English word, anything at all, okay? And I want you to say it to your partner. And I start indicating to the kid who's in the demonstration position to say, you're going to say it to me. And I'm going to think of an English word. Then you're going to think of another word, and we're going to say these words in succession as quickly as we can. Rules: must be an English word, okay? Must not be a word that you've said before or that I've said before, and you must maintain this pace, okay? Linda, you want to try? I don't think Adam is at his computer right now.
Okay.
Okay, so you got the rules?
I hope so.
Okay. So I'm going to start. Okay?
I'll be like a student.
This is good. Okay, here we go. I'll start. Kitchen.
Okay.
Knife.
Spoon.
Fork.
Bottle.
Tablecloth.
Trivet.
Leftovers.
Awful.
What did you have for dinner last night? Okay. I don't know about you, but I had a theme. I began with the word kitchen, and everything there from my decided theme were just words based on my theme. You, because you've never done this before, and I kind of took you for a surprise, we're basically trying to reflect on what I said and trying to bounce it back off me, which is what a lot of these kids do as a sort of fallback communication strategy. They don't go into a conversation with an idea that I want to talk about this. I'm going to prepare this sentence. I'm going to prepare this vocabulary. And this is an opportunity to tell them, listen, that was so much easier for me because I had a theme. I already thought of some words that I could use. And because I maintained my theme, I had an image in my head of things that I could see. Oh, I see a tablecloth. I'll say tablecloth. The hardest thing for you to do in any conversation is try to make it up as you go along. You can do that in your native language. You probably cannot do that in English yet. I know I can't do it in Japanese, so you should probably try to do it when you're speaking your second language. It goes on from there, and we start doing something called phrase throw. So we go from word to 2 words, any 2 words. Now, they don't even have to be grammatically connected. It could be something like blue, dog, big, happy. Now, actually, big, happy might have meanings to these kids, but they're not grammatically connected. But that's okay. It doesn't really matter. Do a couple of rounds of that. Then you put down, oops, oh, that's the wrong one. That came out of nowhere. Okay, then you put down this rule. Yeah, 2 words, but what I want you to do is make sure that at least one of those words is a verb. Any verb, and again, doesn't need a grammatical connection to the other word. The other word can be a verb as well. The verb can come last, the verb can come first. Doesn't matter. But you guys will probably be saying things like play, basketball, see, dog, run, park. Good stuff. That's exactly what I want. A couple of rounds of that, and then you take a couple things that you actually did hear, okay? Because if you heard them, that means they were loud enough to be heard possibly by the other students, and it's legitimately, you're taking this from their utterances. You write it up on the board in exactly this position so that then you tell them, see that? Sister study, play baseball. You need one more word, and you get to my target that I had for you at the beginning of the semester, which is that all your utterances are subject, verbs, and objects. If you put in one more word, a judicious word like this, sister study English, I play baseball, I absolutely will 100% understand your meaning, unless you forgot the don't. Sister, don't study English. Okay, that's pretty important. Remember that next time. Actually, it's my sister doesn't study English, but it's okay. Sister don't study, gotcha. I play baseball, I gotcha. You are speaking in subjects, verbs, and objects. Now, if you can make this as your standard way of speaking, and the way I call this is an idea throw. So it went from word throw to phrase throw to idea throw. I don't use the word sentence because that's too connected to the idea of accuracy. I say an idea. So if you say something like, English, sister, no study, that counts as an idea. It's a crappy sentence. It's barely a sentence, but it's a good communicative idea. Then I ask you to do this as 2 ideas. Sister, no study English. Sister, volleyball only. Sister, stupid. Is the typical sort of thing that siblings would say about other siblings. And I don't know about you, if I can get my students to come out of my class speaking that way with a bit more confidence, I have faith that if from the beginning of the class that they actually wanted to become better, they know what they need, they just need more time. Can't be done in 16 weeks, but I gave them the confidence to speak quickly, to repeat for information, and to look at people in the eye when they speak. The semester assessment goes basically like this. I'm going to stop this share so I can come into this sheet a little bit more tightly. Okay, so it looks like this. There are 4 categories for 100 points, each one 25 points each. Equal and natural conversation, 25 points. Conversation style, 25. Communication, speed, and fun, all worth 25 points each, makes 100. Equal and natural conversation is everyone speaking roughly the same amount, 3-person group, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Feel it out. You guys know what 1/3 feels like. You know when one kid is trying to, because the other 2 chose the one guy because he spoke English really well. And he said, hey, let's just make Taro do a whole speech for 5 minutes and we're going to be good to go. No, you guys are going to be good to fail because that's not a conversation. That's Taro's speech. It is not natural. If it is Taro's speech, he memorized it. It is not a natural conversation. Conversation style, summed up in 3 words. Voice, eyes, smile. Are you speaking with a strong voice? Are you looking at people in the eyes? Are you at least trying to look friendly? Communication. Do you know how to get over your communication problems? Are you communicating actual messages to each other? When you don't understand each other, are you taking the things that I showed you in terms of fixing these communication problems and actually using them in this conversation? Speed and fun. Are you speaking quickly? Are you having fun? There is nothing there about grammatical grammar accuracy or complexity. If you guys really do speak, sister, no, study English, only volleyball, Monday volleyball, Tuesday volleyball, Wednesday, and you can imagine it. If I judge that to be a natural conversation, you're gonna get 90 points, 85 points. But if you speak any Japanese, one single utterance of Japanese, 5 points down for everybody. Everybody gets the same mark. Everybody gets the same mark out of 100. Everybody has to work cooperatively. Conversations are done with a team mind. They cannot be done individually. And this is what you guys have to do for 2 different conversations over 2 different topics. Each conversation, 5 minutes apiece. Pardon me. Make your own groups. I'm not going to have anything to say unless there's a population problem. There's one kid that needs a group, and I'm going to ask you to bring this kid into yours. Otherwise, do your best. I'm going to give you time to practice, and we'll do the practices. We'll do the assessments at the end. Good thing for you as teachers, you do the assessments. You've got your final grade right there. Don't have to take anything home except that number to plug into your final grades. I'm going to go back to my original share here. Whoops, sorry, wrong button. And whoopsie, stop share. Sorry, everybody. And you have less take-home marking. Students receive immediate feedback. Your first semester, this test, the instructor doesn't participate. In the second semester, you do participate. Everything scaffolds. So if you have these kids for a year, you tell them in the second semester, you guys can't fake it like you did before, and I'm not going to try to throw a wrench in the works. I will try to be cooperative with you, but you can't predict what I'm going to say or when I'm even going to say it, or if I'm even going to say anything. All you know is that I might participate. And these semester assessments, okay, are as I described them. They're 2 unrehearsed group conversations as described there. Okay. I put all of my emphasis on them being able to speak with what they already have. The original acronym for this whole system before I started tinkering it with myself was called UWYK, or using what you know. It never tried to actually teach anything new. What it did was try to pull out of their memories words that they had studied, like because and so and but. Words are basically conjunctions to create longer sentences that they know well, but just don't practice well enough. So there's all of the other points that I was making before, okay? And what is important is that you create your own paradigm shift. You're here to become a fluency instructor. Accuracy is something these kids know well enough. They've been pounded into the pavement about accuracy since junior high school. And fluency fluency is a skill. That means it requires time spent on task. It is not a fact set. You do not explain fluency. You promote its practice. You promote its usage. Your potential pitfalls, if you do take this on, okay, is the idea that, as I said, there is no clear connection to other classes' materials. And especially if you've been asked to teach a textbook, you have to work hard to actually make this connect to the stuff that's in your textbook. Most teachers compromise and say, well, I want to use it, but I guess that means that I still have to do the exercises in the textbook, so I can only use it for 30 minutes a class. Hey, still better than nothing. There is no connection to the final assessment, again, unless you do it my way, which is all the way through the class. But maybe you can do something where they have to do a Flipgrid video, or I don't even use Flipgrid. I just get them to do walking videos on their cell phones. These no-fail exercises where I show them how to do these demonstrations, and they don't necessarily fail in the traditional sense. What I tell them is, you didn't make it that time. So remember that and go on to the next one and practice it again. You will not fail in this class. You will fail maybe if you believe it in that demonstration, but you will not fail this because it is not a matter of failing the actual practice. The practice, it's like you're not a good hitter because you missed one baseball. You wouldn't say that to Suzuki Ichiro, right? You maybe did not hit that baseball, but a batting average of 380 is a pretty good batting average, but you're still missing 2/3 of the baseballs. Be careful that you understand what fluency is to you so that you can get them to understand that fluency is a paradigm shift. It is a skill set. It is a matter of practice. It is not a matter of knowledge. You are a coach. You're not a lecturer. Okay. You target your output quantity over your quality. Don't talk any more than you need. Do more demonstration than you do explanation, and make sure your scaffolding is good. I don't normally like to blow my own horn, so I like to get other people to do that for me. When I show this to people and they bring it to their classes, they come out with these testimonials. A lot of you know Mary Virgil Uchida. She's very famous in JALT as a kiddie teacher, and she does this with 5-year-old kids. Jenny Crittenden is a high school teacher, did some university work as well. And all of these situations for her works every time. And she literally said that she cannot get these kids to stop. She says, stop. They're so loud that they can't hear her. She resorted to bringing in a bell because her little voice wasn't enough to get them to stop. Catherine Akasaka and Adam Jenkins, you guys all know, especially if you hang around OTJ like I do, and they both say good things about it. Here are the links to my resources. That's my email. Please contact me if you want to. That URL on the bottom left is a website or a web page where I keep all of these recordings for you to review. There's a QR code there, and my Facebook link to my Verbal Classrooms page itself, where I try to keep on top of the things that I can give out as hints to people who follow the method itself. Thank you very much for your warm attention. If you have any questions, I'll take them now.
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. This is brilliant. I have total control over what I teach my students, and this is going to be in a lot of this is going to be in beginning next week.
Okay, so for you, Barbara, have you seen my YouTube video playlist?
No, not yet, but I will tonight.
Okay, good. Okay. Did you need to see that URL one more time?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll show you though one thing if I can. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, hang on. I'll actually show you so that when you get there, you know exactly where to go. So I will share a page here. Excuse me, new share. And there it is. Okay. So once you go to the link that I'm about to show you, you're going to go either to the top page, but the link that I'm going to show you will take you directly to this page. And these are my Verbal Classroom resources. When I talked about my YouTube video playlist, you can see the first video here, but if you want to see the entire playlist, just go to this blue button, okay, and click it, and you'll go to the actual playlist, going from video 1 all the way down to video 7. And this is another video where I was actually teaching liaisons while I was teaching VC to my students. And you'll see me actually teaching in Japanese there. But this is video 1 all the way through. These are general topics. The AQP and the switching is covered here. I do more with OIOB here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you find anything here that you want to talk to me about, certainly, please, anytime that you want, come back to this email address. And yeah, oops, sorry. This email address, and just, yeah, come and have a dialogue with me. Happy to do that anytime you want.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Anyone else? Criticism, comment? I won't be taking any lunch orders, unfortunately, where the lunchroom is closed.
Can we keep going for another 2 hours?
I was told earlier on not to do that. I'm very, very sorry. But hey, tell you what, Barbara, bring it up with the officers of Matsuyama JALT, and I'll do a follow-up.
Well, we've asked Jose about doing a follow-up next year, maybe in February. So we've got, or maybe December, I don't know, whenever it works out. So hopefully it can be here in person.
That would be wild.
Mm-hmm.
It would be fun too. Wild and fun.
Yeah. And maybe you, Barbara, could join in and do something and have a joint meeting.
Now there's an appealing idea. Barbara, I heard that you do a lot of fluency work too, right?
I do, and I teach seniors. I've got I'm proud of having the highest average student age in maybe the whole prefecture. But we do a lot of fluency work.
Excellent, excellent. Do you think this would work with the older crowd?
Well, we'll find out. I think it will.
Okay, then I'd like to stay in touch with you on that, because I don't have the luxury of being able to throw this across anything but, you know, K-12 to university. So that would be good to know.
And my classes are 2 to 6 people, so they'll get a lot of practice.
Ah, okay. Are they fairly enthusiastic and don't have a lot of hesitancy with having their voice heard by others?
Yeah, they're pretty enthusiastic, and they're there because they want to be there, not because they need a credit.
Okay, then it'll work. When I'm dealing with small classes, I find that the minimum number of students that is required to create a din that hides everyone's voice is 8 to 10. Anything less than that, and you're struggling, because these kids do become more self-conscious because they can hear each and every individual voice.
Yeah, before Corona, we had lots of practice where everyone was up and out of their seats, interacting and then changing partners and then exchanging cards and then interacting again and moving around. Now they have to stay in their seats neatly separated, so it makes it a little bit more difficult, but they're pretty familiar with each other and not too hesitant.
Did anyone else want to come in or have a question?
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It reminds me of the things that I used to do at Egmont University for the German classes.
Oh,
and, they are very similar, and we used to bring our students within 1 year to the A2 level, and they were speaking with actual German speakers, except for the teacher themselves, that was me, with German speakers in Germany over Skype or whatever. And they also got to some kind of level of fluency. And actually, this is things that I defined on there. But the thing is, if they can get to this level in German, where they start from scratch in 1 year, so I would wonder why they have all those 10 years of English before.
They needed it because you gave them the amount of time. If you look at the details under the Sefer of the expected amount of time in a classroom, that depending on the way that it's measured, it's between 1,000 to 1,200 hours of class time.
Yeah.
And those class hours are expected to be done in English with a lot of student participation. They needed 10 years because the amount of time that they actually spoke in English, I do this as a class survey at the beginning of a lot of my classes, they spoke about maybe 2 or 3 minutes per 50-minute class. That's why it took, and even if you gave them 20 years, they're not going to get anything done. There's no internal momentum built inside themselves to actually utter words at a high rate.
One more thing I would like to ask is, you write something on the board there, on the blackboard, right? My experience was that as soon as I write something on the blackboard, they start to look at writing and read things like that. And for English, this might be okay as they have some kind of background. But if you do that for another foreign language like German or French, when you start with that, that will impede the speaking. It will take time off from the speaking hours because they would start to read that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be doing, so if you're going to be doing this, in a language other than English, where I'm making the assumption these kids have a functional vocabulary of a minimum 600, 700 words, a functional grammatical level of, A2. If they don't have that in German, if they don't have that in Chinese, you're going to need to do certain things with providing them with the right Quizlet sets before the class. Your sentences will have to be prepared before so that you hit the right sentence. Say, okay, everybody remember this word. This was in your last Quizlet set. What does it mean? No, right. Okay, good. Everybody clear? It's what he said. Okay, everybody. Also, another thing that I didn't reveal, I teach in Japanese. I know that that's controversial, but there's actually a lot more research out there that says there is far less harm than imagined for a native speaker to actually teach in Japanese. There's actually a lot of benefit to it. I don't want to get into that argument, but I solved that problem very easily by asking them, 手わかる？みんなわかるよね？これ大丈夫？大丈夫じゃない？じゃあ、誰かわかる？そうだ、そうだ。みんな聞いた？ Okay, じゃあ行きましょう。And it's solved really right away, right there.
Yeah, it's good. Good for
Rudolph,
picking up the class. Yeah.
Yeah. Chris.
There's one more point that I should make. Having students speak and getting speed into the class is a very dangerous thing, because some students might not like it. They might complain to the teachers, to other teachers. And that's actually what brought me out of Acme University. They had said our students, some of our students don't like to have speed and don't like to go fast because they get anxious and they get all kinds of trouble there. And so they said, we can't renew your contract. I mean, I was being out of Acme University anyway, but there was a possibility to have more classes. So if you want to do that, be careful about that. I think it's a good idea. It brought students to a very high level, actually. But if you do that in English or in any other language, activating your students will set you to the risk of having other students go to the
I would like to face that.
Tell them it's not good.
Right. I would like to face that problem. I would like to sit down with that student and say, you are complaining that I'm trying to make you go too fast. Now, if that student does have a true anxiety disorder, okay, that is a very separate thing. If they went to the actual student counseling section and said, I have an anxiety about English, that's fine, I understand, and I'll find another way for you. But I don't think that if a student complains that I'm trying to make them speak a language too fast, that I'm going to give that a lot of credence. And I would probably have at least a talk with that student. But in any case, thank you very much, Rudolph. Chris, you have a question.
Thank you.
So when you're practicing in pairs, but yet your assessment is with 4 people.
Yes.
Is there any trouble in jumping from 2 to 4?
No, because there is a stage where we go from pairs. And so imagine there's a row of kids going down. So 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. And let's say they go 6 deep. So first row from you down to the 6th row to the back. Now, there might be a complementary row on that side because there's going to be like 24 students in the class. But let's say 6, thus 12. So I say, okay, we're going to start working in groups. Everybody, I'm going to give you a number. Please remember 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Go over to that row, assign a number. I say, okay, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to do word throw, but we're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then 3 goes back to 1. You group in the back, you're 4 people. So obviously go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ready? People who are number 1, raise your hand. Okay, people who are number 2, raise your hand. 1 goes to 2, 3. Are you ready? Everybody ready? Go. Switch. Remember your new number. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They become accustomed to the rhythm of having to do this in a group. They become accustomed to having a little more time to think, because it's not, bam, 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 bam. Your turn, you have twice as much time to think about it. And then I say, okay, now let's practice phrase throw, idea throw. And now let's create our groups for the assessment. Find your friends, do whatever you want. Give me your word lists. I'm not your word lists, your name lists. I'll bring them next week fully and put into those sheets. But right now, let's all sit together. Now you're with your group. Okay, now choose who's going to go 1, who's going to go 2, who's going to go 3. And we do this sort of circular thing for a little while. And then slowly but surely, I start pulling out certain variables so that then they get to independent conversation. One of them is first removing the amount requirement. So if you only want to say one word, like really, which is a legitimate answer, it's a legitimate comment, okay, that's fine. But in this 2-minute practice, in this 3-minute practice, let's all reflect. Did you speak as much as everybody else? Were you speaking too much? Were you not speaking enough? Okay, well, then you know you've got to balance that out. Next thing that I pull out is the order. Do not go in order. Even if it was accidentally you guys going in order, I will note that you guys are going in order. So find a way to break that order. Find a way so that then it goes 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, 2, 2, 3. Find a way. Because if I hear you guys going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, even if it was accidental, you're going to lose points. So find a way to force that in there. And then we give them the requirement of going on for 5 minutes. No Japanese. Scaffold, 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 scaffold.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
May I add just one question?
Sure.
You said they are doing 2 topics at the end of the course
Yes.
as assessment. Do they? How long in advance do they know the topic? Is it
Okay, so we have been
1 week
practicing.
before?
We have been practicing the topics, my room, from about week 6. We progressed to my family. From my family, we progressed to high school. Then I start throwing in more of those everyday topics that I mentioned before. By the end of the semester, there's a target of 10 topics in my head, or nearly 10 topics in my head, that I have probably done at least 8 or 9 of through that semester. And I tell them, okay, so here's the topic list for the assessment. And I number them off, and they all see that they're all, you know, the ones that we were practicing in class: family, sports, music, TV, America, Japan, and blah, blah, blah. And I tell them, and this is about week 13, see that topic list? You as a group get to choose one topic from there, any topic that you want. That can be topic number 1. Practice it if you want. I still think you shouldn't practice it too much, because having a natural conversation is still part of your assessment. Practice it as much as you want, though. But I get to choose topic number 2. And I will announce topic number 2 only after you finish topic number 1, which forces them to practice all of those topics. Don't know which one it'll be, but they know what it is by week 13.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's what I wanted to.
Seems to work every time. Yeah.
Great.
Does anyone else have any questions? If not, I'd like everyone, please unmute your mic, and let's give Jose a big hand and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. And I don't know if you want to stop the recording now.
Let me do that.